Hi, I'm Cameron Pitney, and I've got a question for you. Do you think that people are ruder on public transport than they used to be? Like, are we meaner to each other? Are we more inconsiderate to one another on buses and trains? What are the unspoken rules of public transport?
So what I'm hearing anecdotally is that people are ruder to each other on public transport than they used to be, that people are more likely to skip a bus fare, that they're more likely to harass another person on the bus. I'm also hearing that people are more likely to play their music or to play a video out loud and annoy other passengers. And more seriously, I'm hearing that cases of abuse against bus drivers and train operators are happening more frequently than they used to. I'm also wondering if this is a COVID thing. You know, like, did we all go home and forget how to behave? We're going to go to Britomart and we're going to go and bother some people at the train station. Just like we want people to not do. Hey, buddy.
Ah, you're so cute.
Do you think that people are ruder on buses and trains than they used to be?
Yeah, definitely.
What kind of behavior do you think is more common now than it used to be?
I would say just aggression. I've just been seeing it on TikTok and Instagram reels that, like, it's just people just in the wrong mindset and they just don't think properly.
Do you think it's a mental health issue?
Probably, yeah.
I think people have become more isolated in public, not necessarily ruder. People have stuck to social media so much that when they have someone talk to them in person, it's usually because someone wants something or you just don't want to interact with anyone, and that comes off as rude.
Yeah, the other problem with doing a story about public transport is that people use it to go places, and then you try to stop them and they want to go to the place. Thanks for the chalky milk, bro.
Yeah, no worries. People are pretty considerate. The only real thing that I've seen that's changed recently is people trying to kind of get on a train or get on a bus before people have left. Like, I try and get off the train at the end of the day when I'm getting to my stop, when I'm getting home, and there's people there right at the doors, and they're just trying to jump on. It's like, I can't. I need to leave. And they're not really respecting that. That's the big change I've seen recently, and that's only popped up in the last couple of months.
So I bus to the train station and train here.
I've had some people say that people are more willing to play their music out loud, or they'll get on before people get off and things like that. Do you think that happens more than it used to?
Actually, yeah. I think it does.
Do you still say thank you to the bus driver?
I do. Thank you. Have a nice day. And he's like,
When you're working in an industry that you don't get rewarded so well, you become a lot more numb and resilient. So when you hop on a bus with a bus driver, for instance, and you say hello and they ignore you, there's that tension that builds. Whereas if they were getting more incentives, if they were getting paid better, if they enjoyed their job, they'll be a lot more bubbly, right?
Am I just being a grumpy old man?
I think you're allowed to be grumpy if someone's playing TikToks on the phone. It's like, I don't want to see a skibbity toilet. The biggest one I've seen is actually people on their phones having conversations, speakerphone.
I guess if they were raised up in like a house where it was normal for them, I guess what happens at home could be normalized in public.
To Britomart is due now. Route inner link to Britomart is due to depart in 2 minutes. Route outer link to Wellesley is due to depart in 3 minutes. Route outer link to Wellesley is due to depart in 20 minutes.
If I'm going to be a realist about it, there feels like there has been a decline in like the general cohesion of society ever since the pandemic, where a lot of people have been taken away. You're seeing it from concerts, people being ruder and ruder there. Seeing a little bit in day-to-day interactions, people are a little shorter with each other in the interactions in stores.
What can we do to make things better?
Slow down. Like, we don't have a world-class transport system. It is 10 bus routes in a trench coat and 1 train line. Just be chill about it.
So here's the problem. I've been asking people about rudeness, but I am not the expert in politeness. So I'm going to speak to the expert in politeness, doyen in etiquette, Susie Wilson.
Well, the history of etiquette is interesting. I mean, etiquette was applied in France, actually, in the 16th century or even before. And it was for the royals, whom had enough of rude, loud, rowdy courtiers. Etiquette, put simply, is a conduct of rules, respectful behaviour for others. So it hasn't changed. So if anything, it's needed more. So it's respect of others at all times.
Good manners, bad manners, of course, are culturally specific.
Yes.
But are there key principles that are universal, that are true everywhere?
Yes. respecting other people's cultures, respecting other people's position, respecting other people. Yes, that hasn't changed. That's everywhere around the world.
Buses and trains are these liminal spaces we get into just to go somewhere else. Are social rules different in that kind of a space?
No, they're the same. Stand up for a senior person, stand up for a lady, stand up for a gentleman, stand up for age groups. So more senior, you would want to stand. A lady who is, with child as well. So give up your seat. So it's all the same. However, the difference is that people have got AirPods or earpieces in their ears, so they're not as present as they used to be or should be.
Obviously, we have a few things now that we didn't have under the French monarchy. I can pull out my phone and I can play a video, or I can make a call, I can talk to somebody on a bus or a train. Am I being hugely inconsiderate if I answer the phone?
Good question, and the answer is yes, you are. Pop your phone away for about 20 minutes or put it on silent. You don't need to have that conversation. I'm sure most conversations are personal, so the person next to you really doesn't want to hear about whatever it is.
What effect do you think the internet has had on how people treat each other in public?
People have become disengaged. They're less social. They're less graceful. They're more unmannered. They're just less present. But it's not all bad. It really isn't. Most people aren't rude. Most people are respectful, and most people do care.
Do you think that there are specific ways that the pandemic has affected how we treat each other in public?
People have closed up. The only news that they were listening to 24 hours was doom and gloom, wasn't it really? The other thing too, with regard to that, there was a certain age group that were locked up for a couple of years, locked down. They have not been able to go outside to do the normal social aspect or social etiquette. People just need to understand that a certain way of behaving is not necessarily the correct way. So it's how it is told and sold to that person. And if one person treats another person with respect and kindness and use their manners, it will be picked up. It is a ripple effect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, here's the serious part. Are bus drivers actually copping more abuse than they used to? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? Why are people mean to each other? Executive General Manager for Public Transport Services at Auckland Transport, Stacey Vanderputten. Why are people mean to each other?
I think there's a bit of what I would call grumpiness around. Yeah, and I think Auckland particularly has an overwhelming abundance of grumpiness the last year. I know that's a real fruity term to use, but I just generally think it's really a glass half empty sort of approach to everything. That's understandable. It's been a rough few years. Then we had the storm events at the start of the year. People were struggling financially. And, the cost of living's obviously growing, so that does impact people's demeanour and how they feel. What we have seen, and we have, good data to support that in terms of a bit of a degradation in terms of people's behaviour on public transport since coming out of what I call the COVID lockdown period. And just what I would suggest is a bit more disrespect rather than understanding that you're in a public space, you're on board a service, and with that comes a certain etiquette that you should behold in order to be on that service. So yes, we have seen a bit of a slide in that, but that's a bit of a generalisation. We're talking about a minority in terms of users here. We're not talking about general public transport customers.
So do you think it was a COVID thing? Like we all went home and we all forgot how to behave?
Yeah, look, I think it was a bit of that, to be fair, but I also think it was a bit in terms of some of the sentiments and everything that's come out of that, the lockdowns and people, being sick of being told what to do.
Are bus drivers and train service operators really experiencing more abuse and more harassment than they used to?
Definitely, yeah, absolutely they are. Look, I think it has started to come down. And so we did see it start to escalate last year, which is of course really, really concerning. But it does seem to be, declining a little bit in terms of that, but still way higher than what we would like.
So last year sucked. and it's gotten a little better. Is it trending better? Are people being nicer to each other on the bus?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they are being nicer to each other on board the bus. There are obviously what I would call isolated instances of people not being nice to each other on the bus, or, not just not being nice to each other, but creating an environment that's not conducive to a good journey for others.
Has etiquette changed? Is there a new generation of people for whom politeness is just a different thing? There are different rules.
It's a really good question. I mean, I don't think good manners has ever gone out of fashion.
If someone's on the bus and they're playing a video off their phone and they don't have headphones on and the volume's really loud, what do you think is an appropriate punishment? Death penalty?
Yeah, an appropriate penalty? I don't know. I mean, I think it's more of, being told not to do that and actually telling people why. And sometimes people just do not understand outside their own little bubble that they're in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stacey van der Putten confirmed that bus drivers really are facing more abuse than they used to in the past, and that 2022 was a particularly bad year. She also indicated, though, that things are slowly starting to look up. So maybe after several years of disruptions, people are slowly learning to be decent to each other again. Maybe what Susie Wilson said is correct, and the kind behaviour of a few people will have a ripple effect on others. But what do I know? I tried to talk to people about rude behaviour, and I spent an entire day bothering people in public. Don't be like me. Happy holidays. And have a safe summer. And try to be nice to each other on the way home, okay?
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all the latest news from the New Zealand Herald. Click the subscribe button below or check out one of the videos here, and head over to nzherald.co.nz for more details on these stories and more.